So you have a business idea and you have some type of insight of the type of product that you're trying to build that you could think you're going to be able to sell to the people that have an interest in this thing. But always the challenge is getting that first version of the product out the door so that you can start running traffic to it to get the initial downloads and the initial success of the product. My strategy to do this personally is I just spin up landing pages and make fake mock-ups of the product, send traffic to it, and get people to sign up. And if I can't, then I sunset the product and we never actually build it. But this is quickly changing with all of the AI tools that are capable of making the first versions of the product based off of the information that you provided. So today, what we're going to talk through is basically how to uncover product ideas and then how to share how you think that product should function, what it should look like, etc., in a recorded format so that you can create a transcript and then transform that transcript into a PRD, which stands for product requirement document, which you can then take to a product like V0 to spin up into the first version of the product. And this is really powerful because you can go from idea to the visual representation of that idea in literally under an hour. And when you combine these two things together, when you send traffic to that page to validate it and you have a simple version of that thing that it's in existence, you can really quickly validate the idea or validate the feature that you're trying to build. And if you want more content like this, subscribe to this channel and subscribe to the email newsletter link below in the description. Also follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter. The links are down below. And this episode is brought to you by Talent Fiber. Talent Fiber helps you hire the best offshore talent for your company. It works different than a traditional headhunting agency where you pay them 10 grand and then they just disappear. Talent Fiber is a BPO or business professional outsourcing company. How they're different is they only get paid when that employee stays at your company. You just provide them a job description and they're super easy to get started with. You just provide them a job description. They'll go and find you the best candidates. They handle all the HR for those people, all the payments for those people, and they can go after the best talent and get the best talent because they offer the equivalent of a 401k or healthcare, etc., in that specific geography that they're hiring from. And this just makes them a magnet for the best talent in that country. And the best part is if that employee doesn't work out or if they quit, they'll go and replace that employee for you automatically and handle that whole process. We hire their offshore talent exclusively for all the companies that I own. They are some of our best team members. I could not find people better than them in the US, and we're paying 1/3 of the cost to have them. Go to talentfiber.com to learn more. And before we get started with today's show, today I'm hosting my friend Jay, who runs an AI product development studio. He's going to give us his whole workflow for building out the first version of these products. His company's name is called Casper Studios. Go check it out. There's a link in the description. And with that context, let's get started with today's show. Jay, what's good, man? How you
Cody.
been?
How are you, Cody? How's it going?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How's your week been?
It's ending in the best way. I get to hang out with you.
I don't know about that. I'm probably be way too geeked out for this. So anyway, today I'm pretty hyped about this. We're gonna basically do like from an idea to here's like what the first version of a product could look like in that whole process. And for context for the audience is a little bit like what Jay runs a product studio. All they do is build AI products all day long. They're unbelievable at it, and they can basically take a idea to a concept in like 30 days. I've seen them do it in the past. It just depends, obviously on like a client and what they're doing. But their whole thing is like AI first with all of the development. And I think today that's what we're going to go through is like, okay, you found this idea, you found a seam, there's a business concept, and like the idea we're going to talk about today is like super half baked, and Jay's going to help flesh that out and actually make that a reality. So anyway, man, yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to touch on, or actually before we jump in, I'd be curious, like, why is this becoming this like new standard? You've been in product for, that's your career, right? And so why is there such a big opportunity with this, with these tools like V0, with, basically using these as the way to kind of get that first version of the product, that visualization out the door?
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Yeah, great question. Grateful to be over here. Grateful for you, Cody, for always inspiring a lot of founders and builders to be able to think outside the box and try different things out. And I'm definitely a student of your work. I'm a student of Greg's work, and it's impacted my business, it's impacted my life. And so I've expressed this to you privately a lot, but thank you for doing what you're doing. It helps a lot of people out.
Dude, I love it, man. This is this is why we're here. So anyway, but let
me answer the question.
Yeah. No. You're good. I'm just, again, I'm curious to hear from your side, like, as a founder's perspective, like if we can get something out the door that I have a
Mhm.
customer conversation with, and take that recording, turn it into an actual visualization that we can show the client like within an hour after having the call. Like, I see the value of that, but
Yeah,
I want to hear from like the product side of like,
right.
why is this such a, kind of a pivotal moment in
Yeah.
product's history from over its whole existence.
Totally. So most of my product background and skill set and learning has come from working at LinkedIn. I was there for 5 years. And I remember at times when a product manager or a non-technical person would write up a document and wanting to make a business case about something. Like, let's say I wanted to be able to launch a new feature, or I wanted to go into a new market or do something big. Half of the job was just getting people on the same page and communicating your ideas effectively. The part that we'd always struggle with was that once we had a really nice, beautiful document laying out what I'll go into later is a product requirements document, more about the problem, more about the user, what specific features they could build. Whenever we'd go and we'd present that, there was still something missing, which was a really beautiful visual to really tie it all together. Visuals and designs really make people move and act. I've experienced this in a lot of different ways myself. I've come up with different ideas. One idea was one of the products that our business shipped. It's a Chrome extension called Casper. I remember just thinking about it with a couple friends. I put it in like a really like a one pager that became a product requirements document. I just sent it to a designer friend. I'm like, it'd be really cool if we could actually build a product like this. And I just forgot about it. And 4 days later, he had come back with the most beautiful prototype showing exactly how everything was going to work. And it just went from the text to actual Figma. And I was like, holy crap, like I need this in the world now. And so there's this magic moment when you can interact with something visually, especially if it feels like it's going to solve a problem that you have, that makes people want to act. And so that's how we've been designed for us at Casper Studios is super important. And so for us, we design and build AI products. We take those learnings and we design and build our own products. We then share it on social media to be able to have more clients come and work with us to be able to design and build AI products, kind of taking that flywheel in motion. And so design is how we win. And so I'm always really keeping up to speed in terms of what are the best in class design tools. How do I reduce the amount of time to be able to go from a conversation to that magic moment? And I think V0 is definitely helping with a lot of that.
That's fascinating, man. I love it. I think with that context to it, like gives it's perfect segue in what we're doing today. So here, let me screen share and I can kind of walk through the opportunity and like what we're going to be working on. So anyway, I remember I think I sent this to you like really early on when I first saw this because I was just like, this is ridiculous. I mean, in a bunch of group chats with other founder friends that, and I'm always just tossing these around. But anyway, so found this search term AI infographic generator, absolutely just going bananas. So anyways, ended up buying the domain, the exact match domain AI infographic generator.com for like $10. And so this was the whole concept. So like high level, the product and like how this kind of fits all together and the opportunity here and like how marketers use infographics or like where this fits into the whole stack. Typically, like somebody would write a blog post, they would then go and they would make an infographic that they would embed on the blog post. And the reason for that is that's typically a link like magnet honeypot is kind of how people think about it. So when you have an infographic of the thing, like what you end up seeing is that people will scrape that infographic and then they'll include it on their like other websites. And then also it creates a larger dwell time on the blog posts themselves when there's something visual that kind of, is at the top of the page that hooks people. So like traditionally how you would go and you would make these infographics is you would go, to something like Canva or Figma or whatever it is, and you would pull out the content from that blog post. And then you would find like, 5 sections and I would make, a title, paragraph, graphic, title, paragraph, graphic, and then have it in some design language or format that's related to the brand. And so, looking at this, I immediately was like, oh, this is a massive opportunity. Like the kind of high level idea of the product is I take a blog post, I upload it into this thing, and then it goes and it like outputs a graphic. So maybe it generates, 5 different, from the blog post finds 5 insights, and then it generates a graphic that's related to each of those insights, and it does it in a flat design language or, a specific color scheme or format that's related to the brand. I think the first version of this is like, you have maybe 5 to 10 different templates that are like in different design styles. You upload that blog post, and then it just generates each of those templates at, in those different styles. And then a person could just download that as a PDF that they then, or a PNG that then they would go and embed on their site. And that's kind of the MVP and kind of where I see like kind of the the wedge in to get the initial on this. But yeah, man, happy to answer any questions about kind of the opportunity there. And, what I'm curious to hear your thoughts, or like even just discovery questions. So
yeah, I love it. I think, do you mind stop sharing screen? I think that might
help totally.
with the beautiful. I was in Cody Inception, which usually is awesome, but in this case, it was distracting me.
Totally.
So this is great. Like a lot of founders come to us with this, maybe not as much validation as you come in with like all the search terms. So for the audience, I get texts from Cody every other day, like another one of these charts going up and to the right. and I'm glad that you do come at it with a little bit more research. A lot of times people are just saying like they are themselves the user that would be able to, that wants a problem to be solved. And so maybe what we can do is like have like a quick like mock discovery session. So again, we try to go from discovery, like really go deep in terms of asking the right questions that would understand the user's problems, which then actually becomes a product requirements document, which then gets sent to a designer and or a AI design tool to be able to come up with the first version of what this mock-up or designs could end up looking like. And then from there, we actually go through and then give it to the engineering team to be able to build it out. And so I'm just going to pretend like we're like, you're a customer of mine, and we're going to like go through the discovery session really quickly, which I think could help founders out in the future. So that was great. I appreciate a little bit of the background. Do you mind just like highlighting a little bit more about how you would use, or maybe even a step above, like who are you? What do you do? Why is an infographic important to you? Just help me understand a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, totally. So I would probably classify like myself or a user for this as like they're digital marketing, that would be the highest category. Probably below that would be like somebody like an SEO specialist. So their job is they're trying to make the best, to say it bluntly, we would call it like the thickest content possible. So like provide as much value as they can within that piece of content. An infographic is just like one of those tools within their belt, like videos, photos, well-written content, well-structured, a lot of white space in between it would be those other tools. But typically it's going to be like anybody that's doing some type of marketing is really why they're doing those infographics. It's just a really easy way to take complex information and kind of make it into this digestible format with hitting those key insights, those key bullet points, but doing it in a way that is going to be draw the eye. And a lot of the times how people use this, especially on the SEO side, is like, okay, I search a query, I land on this page. If I see a wall of text, I'm like, like it kind of is like, it looks like a job to go through it. And so how they would use this or how they go about this is they would basically include that infographic, at a higher part of the page scroll. So say, 20% of the way down or whatever that ends up being, so that it just kind of breaks up that wall of text. And again, provides something that is like more interesting to the eye than just like a bunch of written words. And so it's used kind of as this mechanism. But yeah, that person is going to probably be either like an SEO or a digital marketing specialist that works in an organization. I don't think a founder or any type of group. It'd probably be somebody in a larger org that would be using this, or it would be like somebody that's running like a niche site. Or some type of content blog that is trying to say they're trying to go after dog parks near me, and they're making like a bunch of like a directory website that's trying to rank for that so that they can get ad revenue on it. They would just use this as another way to make a more thick piece of content. So
why is it important for the content to be visually appealing? What's the value of that?
Yeah, so it's largely because we see that people's dwell time increases over time when you have that in there. So like super simple way to do this, or like to test this if somebody's listening, is basically if you take a blog post and you don't have an image within like the top fold of this of the site, of the post, if you do that and do an A/B test of like add image, no image, you're going to see that people have a higher dwell time when they land on something that just like breaks up the visual kind of like landscape of the post. So these infographics are just a way to do that. they're also just like one of the oldest things that people have made on the internet. It's like one of these classic types of content that people have made, and so they're very used to seeing those. And from a visualization standpoint, like a lot of the times, that visual is a way to kind of like introduce people to the brand as well, that style. Like for whatever that brand style guide is, etc. It's typically incorporated or close to whatever that infographic is. So it's like again, if you think about like wall of text versus, oh, there's images and graphics that are scattered throughout this, it just create that variability. Like the human that's reading it enjoys that more. And we see that within the dwell time on the page. And the higher dwell time we can have on a page, the more likely that page is going to rank for that target keyword that we're going after. So.
And I'm assuming if it ranks for that target keyword, then it ends up driving more conversions to that website. So from what if I'm hearing correctly, from the very beginning, having visually appealing content in the form of an infographic helps the people to stay on their website longer or stay on that piece of content longer. If they do that, then they have a higher probability of converting to whatever you want them to convert to, which then drives revenue. Is that accurate?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the type of blog that they're running. Like if it's a niche site, all they're trying to do is get you to click an ad, right? Like that is the goal of the entire site. Or just like basically they're making as much surface area as possible to get as much traffic so that they can get as much ad traffic. If they're a company that's selling something, all they're trying to do is get you to sign up for whatever that product is. I see this mistake, honestly, by founders so often where it's like, they're like, yeah, we wrote, blog content. We get a ton of traffic, but it does nothing. And like, every time I hear that, like immediately I go, oh, I know what's happening. You have zero call to actions throughout the page. You don't even have a pop-up that's telling the person to sign up for the thing. And like what we'll do is we'll go and implement that for them. And like, we'll see their basically their posts go from like, hey, we get 0.1% of people sign up for the tool, and it'll go to 5 to 10% overnight. And so again, the infographics, they serve that purpose of like, how do I get people to go down farther, get more into the content, and then also it's largely it can be used as a backlink tool as well, right? So like people in the past they build out these infographics, they'll go and email them out and be like, hey, person that has this other piece of content that's related to my piece of content, I built this infographic that talks about X. Thought it might be might be valuable to include on your blog post, and then they add it, and then you'd basically like, do you mind linking back to my site? And that's a backlink building strategy that exists. So, anyways, just kind of different layers of this of how it all fits together.
So I'm gonna ask questions really quickly, more micro, to understand your current workflow before using AI, and then I'm actually gonna come back up a level and then understand why you specifically want to be able to build this product. And so for the first one, what are you doing today to be able to create an infographic?
Totally. So probably what would happen is like we have a template, and then the process would be like blog post gets written, that blog content gets copied out, we put it into something like ChatGPT, we have it list the 5 insights, we then take all those 5 insights, and then we go and generate a graphic that's related to each of those 5 insights individually. All of that then gets taken, it's copied over into something like Canva, and at the end of it, we just spent maybe we'll say 15 to 20 minutes to kind of get all of that into Canva and like get it out the door, and then onto the blog post basically. The dream is like I just drop in the blog post URL and it automatically generates that infographic. I hit I command copy the graphic, paste it into my my CMS, and it's live on the site immediately after that, right? So anyway, yeah, that's kind of the workflow that people would traditionally use. And when you think about that at scale, like especially now with like how much content people are writing, like if you write 1,000 blog posts and you're spending 15 minutes per 1,000 blog post, or 15 minutes for 1,000 blog posts, that's 15,000 minutes. That turns into 250 hours of time to make an infographic for every one of them. Even if I'm paying an offshore person, right? We'll say $10 an hour to do that. That's still $2,500. So if you can come in and be like, hey, I can do that same thing for $250, 10% of the cost, that's the value that's there within all of this.
That's interesting. You're saying what you're saying is that this problem of it taking too much time to be able to create an infographic will only increase as AI generated content increases. So
Exactly.
you have more blog posts that are also being created generally because the cost of production for that is going to zero. As that
Totally.
happens, your original problem was that those just text heavy blog posts aren't going to convert users. And so now you have more content. So you have more of a desire to be able to create AI infographic or infographics using AI. And so that both of the trends are kind of happening at the same time.
1,000%, 1,000%. And I think that, the bigger thing here too is like a lot of the times, like people probably wouldn't do this because it's such a, a massive time suck of energy wasted, basically exuded for this. They would only go and traditionally like maybe do this for their top ranking posts, right? So maybe they have, again, we'll just say 1,000 posts that are ranking and only 10% of those are actually making any traffic. So 100, so they make 100 of these. But if you go and, do this for all of them, that's where it becomes a no-brainer. And there's probably these like deeper workflows, right? Where it's like, cool, I upload a list of blog post URLs in a CSV. It goes and generates an infographic for every one of them. And then maybe you can plug into your CMS and then it automatically goes and it publishes them to each of those blog posts individually, with the software. I don't think the first version of that has to be, that complex. I think that MVP of this ends up looking like I upload one URL, it generates an infographic. Like, again, I just saved myself 20 minutes of time. If I can do 3 of those for 3 different blog posts in an hour, and save that time, what's my time cost, et cetera. So, and a lot of this, honestly, is probably going to be like, it's going to be probably like niche site owners, something like that is going to, where this is going to fall into. That's going to, or even like, I mean, I've seen this in the past before too, where people do this as a way to create like Pinterest pins and make Pinterest pins scale that they then use as a way to drive traffic back to their own website. So they would go and they'd find like all the top, like recipe blog posts or something like that, right? And they would pull that out and then use this as a way to bulk make these pins that then they would use as a way to drive traffic to their site. There's also a business idea for somebody out there if they want to be really degenerate. You can go and find like all of the recipe like keywords that people are looking for. And then and I would probably niche it down to have it be like, FODMAP diet recipes or, something that's very like small to begin with. And then you could find all the blog posts related to the recipes, turn those into infographics, pull all the images from it, automatically, programmatically do this, spin those up. You can use the Pinterest API to publish those pins. And then you go and have AI write content, your own blog posts, and basically based off of those sources and those images that you just generated. But again, not to digress, that's just another way to use the same kind of technology.
So I have a good sense. I have a good sense of the problem statement. I have a good sense of the core jobs that you're trying to as a digital marketer or maybe as a small website owner, why you would need to be able to have a more optimized and efficient way to create infographics. I can start to think about a couple of ideas of ways to be able to use AI to be able to do so. Before we get into before we kind of go to the next step, why do you want to build a product like this? What about this idea? What about this idea? I get why the idea is important, but why do you want to build it? What does success look like for you?
Because I like money, Jay. No, but like, I mean, for real, I mean, a higher level on this is like, there's a very common thing that people do that is like a massive time suck. Like if we can go and flip this into a product, like the larger play here is like, since I own the domain AI infographic generator, that's an exact match keyword domain. So just a little bit of education for the audience. Those domains, you could typically get them to rank for those keywords really easily, even though it's competitive, even though that it's like, a ton of search volume going to it. And so due to this and because of that, like we can throw like not a lot of backlinks at that site, like with a direct URL. So the SEO, kind of the technical piece of this would be like we would go and do niche edits was probably what we would do. A niche edit is basically where you find an existing piece of content and you have them like add a section that includes, whatever the thing is that you're trying to get a backlink to. And then you would do the exact match keyword phrase, so AI infographic generator, but you would link to the homepage of the site. And with that, I mean, I've done this in the past, like especially for like these like long tail products that are like super niche software tools. We can get it to go to page 1 with 10 backlinks. That's $1,000 of investment, and suddenly like we're getting as much inbound sign up flow that as we want, basically. And then all it turns into is like, oh, we've solved the customer acquisition problem. Now it's just like figure out the product and you basically fill that top of funnel, right? So anyways, that is like the whole reason is just like, I just see this as another portfolio tool to add, or another tool to add to our portfolio.
Yeah.
So
I'll digress for maybe 30 seconds. And these are for folks that may be running kind of consultants businesses or speaking to clients pretty often, or like I guess like a founder. It's important. Like we've done like the product requirements, like early stage discovery right now. Obviously, we'd go through a layer deeper here if we had a little bit more time to really understand everything, go through user flows, what currently exists, start to ideate on like what could exist. But just to be able to make a sale, right? What you want to be able to do is to go to the personal pain as fast as possible. So a lot of people will start with the intellectual pain. This in my job sucks because of these things. It's like it wastes a lot of time. But through just like curiosity, listening intently, you want to really get actually past that original professional pain to the personal pain. A couple of examples of that, maybe with like a couple of our clients. Client comes, they really want to be able to disrupt X industry. And at first you're like, cool, that sounds like a good solution. Over time, I better understood that he actually wants to disrupt it because the last wave of technology in his industry, he totally missed. And all of his buddies became super rich about it, from it. And then he just wants to be able to actually take advantage of this one so he doesn't look stupid. For me, for example, like you and I are building a product right now. My personal pain, my professional pain is that I want to be able to partner with Cody and see like what we can build together. I think that there's a revenue opportunity because it's one of the up and to the right search terms that Cody keeps sending to me. my personal pain is that AI is pretty crazy right now. It's hard to know where the future is going, and I just want to start making certain bets like that are quick, because if I don't, I feel like I'll miss out. And so it's important for a founder or a salesperson or, like a therapist of some sort. I kind of view myself as almost a product therapist. It's like, listen,
I can
ask
see
questions.
That though, yeah.
Because then it just grounds the relationship in a way that you can then get a lot more context on the problem. And then that helps you build a better product. So it all connects in an interesting way. I just wanted to share that really quickly. But that would be like the first call that I would have with the client. I would wrap up and then I would go on to the next step of the workflow here. So maybe I'll pause there and then we can keep moving.
No, I think that's great. Yeah. And I think for context, for people that are building these things, like, dude, the ideas can be dumb, right? Like that's the kind of the power of like all this new AI stuff is like, I can get a dumb idea out the door and like, it can be a toy and look really stupid, but I mean, every one of the companies that I own and that we've built has started out as like a dumb idea that has evolved into like, oh, now we, thousands of people pay us a month to use this thing, right? Which is like crazy when you get that to scale up. But I just want to piggyback off of that too, of like the different ways to think about product development and like what I should and shouldn't build. For a lot of people, like they have this idea of what they want people to buy rather than what people actually want to buy. And I think that this is a very important thing to think about. And like I just want to like really harp on this. Like just because you want people to buy this thing or want people to want to buy this thing, does that mean that they actually want to buy that? And when you like, I think about this a lot of like, what is a business at its core? It's like, having something that people want to buy and being able to actually build it, right? If you find that though you can do those two things, that's a company, right? And there's two sides of that as well. Like you can be solely focused on selling it if you have a distributor, or you can be the manufacturer that's solely focused on manufacturing if you have people to sell it. But like the best companies in the world, they do both of those things. They both build and sell, but they only build and sell things that people want. The market decides. We can't influence the market. And I say this all the time, but like Coca-Cola can't get people to buy more Coca-Cola, even though they want them to, right? Like that is, I think this is one of the most powerful like UGC companies in the world, and they can't get people to change their consumer behavior. They had to go and acquire water companies and like all of these other like, soft drink types because they saw that couldn't convince people to do this. If they can't do it, you can't do it. So like, don't think like, and then, people always counter with like, well, Uber changed everybody. People still wanted to go places. Like they were using a taxi. Like they went from point A to point B. Uber just went from point A to point B easier. The AI infographic generator is still making an infographic, but it's just doing it in an easier fashion. So that should be the filter a lot of the times when you build these products and when you start.
Yeah, it's really just focusing on that discovery phase, like just really understanding what the problem is. Cody, you've been able to do it in a faster way, right? Because you have the right tools, you've built up the right experiences to know if this search term is increasing, then we should maybe be able to build this. But that in itself is research too, right? Like you're not just starting from nothing. You're using the right insights, the right tools, then you're validating it a little bit and then starting the development process. However you choose to do the research, right? Like you could do search term research, you can go speak with people, you can go do competitive landscape, just do a little bit of thinking. Because where we're heading is that product development is going to become easier and easier. These designs are going to get simpler and simpler. What actually will be relevant is doing the research for people to make sure you're building something that people want. Again, you could do it through looking at online analytics. You can do it through having really deep conversations with enough people. But just make sure you do research, however you end up doing it. So yeah, why don't we go on to why don't I walk through like what the next step of the workflow would look like to be able to get to V0? Is that helpful?
Yeah, let's do it. I would love to see it. So context for the audience. So we just recorded this whole thing, right? Yeah. And Jay took this. He took the transcript, and he basically used and he'll walk through this. But he's basically now going to use that transcript as the way that he builds out kind of the initial information that will then allow for the actual build out of the product. So we'll do that now.
Exactly. So what I would do before. Is after a conversation like that, I would have it recorded probably with Fireflies or Otter. I would then go into my transcript and I would copy paste the transcript and I'd put into ChatGPT. Ideally, some of the notes that I'm taking live will prompt me to know what to prompt ChatGPT to be able to pull out the right insights from the transcript itself. And I could do this right away, right? I can go back home, I could pull it, I can put it into ChatGPT. I personally have been really enjoying using O1 for this, the newest model from ChatGPT. O3 is coming out soon too. It is really powerful and really gets you there fast. For the audience, I can also share a mock PRD to be able to show you like what is the right structure of everything. For this,
can you talk about what a PRD is, like just for the people that don't know, like what in a traditional company, how would that be used?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so let's use myself at LinkedIn. I was a part of leading the verification team there. So we launched a verification feature. You can verify your identity and your work history, and now it has over 50 million members verified. That whole thing, the whole interaction, the product, the partnerships, everything is started from a document, right? That document is effectively called a PRD, which stands for Product Requirements Document. It could be used interchangeably with a strategy document. Just think like it has the context of the problem you're trying to solve. It walks through what the key jobs to be done are for a user. Like what are they trying to accomplish in a day? For you, Cody, with the infographic use case, it's Cody's job to be done is they want to be able to create high quality images from text faster, right? That is a job to be done. That then goes into potential solutions for that job to be done. Well, it'd be great if you can have a text bot that I can put like a bunch of text into, and then it can create something. that then goes into some of the competitive landscape and like overview and insights that you can also like look from different competitors to see what you should be building. And so a product requirements document effectively is just a bunch of your thinking and research in a document. And so within a corporate structure, without having something like that, it's hard to get people on the same page, because then you're just like, what are you doing? Then you're just like telling people stuff and you're talking about things. But you need to have like one source of truth that everybody can come and just review and read, add comments to, edit, before you actually move on to the next step. Writing it specifically, even with AI, it just helps you clarify your thinking a lot better as well. So you like, for these original strategy docs for this verification workstream, we spend weeks actually spending time with the discovery phase, really going deep and understanding like what is actually the problem we're trying to solve, what are competitors doing, how do we filter that into the document as well. So that's something that ChatGPT can help with, to be able to create something that then leads to V0. You could even go put that into Cursor or really any other kind of no-code AI platform. It helps the model know what the heck you want to build and why. And then it'll use its own reasoning to be able to build it in the best way possible.
No, that makes total sense. And thanks for the context too for the audience, just to understand of like where this fits in the workflow. It's almost like a, the written version of like with the natural language before any code is written. Like this is what the thing is going to do. This is how people are going to use it, etc. I didn't really think about it too as like a buy-in tool between both, all of the parties internally. And right. I imagine for you guys too, it's like, oh, here's this document. Does this look right to you from a client standpoint? Exactly. And then they're like, yes. And then we go and we do that build off top of that.
Exactly. Yeah. The distinct parts of the workflow are like deliverables that we share with clients, for example, is a product requirements document, is our designs, and then an actual build. Those are the three meta kind of deliverables that we're shipping. This first one is to make sure that everybody's on the same page before we keep going. Because if that one's off, then you're going in this direction, but you should be going in that direction. And if you have that source of truth, then you just keep pointing back at that. You're like, no, we actually agreed to this. If you need to go back and change this, then we can. But that's why we're building X. So yeah, super important to document all these things.
No, I love it. Awesome. Sweet. I'll have you screen share and we'll jump into it.
Let's do it. So what I'm going to start with is, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So I just want to show you what a PRD could look like. So before the call, I kind of went through and I would have taken the transcript from this conversation, put it into ChatGPT. I would likely have copied and pasted another, I guess this is like another tip for prompting. Models perform best when it has a source of truth to be able to look back at. So for example, I have prompts where I've set, or a GPT that I've set up. I've set up like a formula where it's like A, B, and C. A is a transcript, B is left blank, and C is my ideal output. So in this case, it's a PRD. It's a really nice PRD. So again, I would literally go into ChatGPT. I'd say, here's A, which is just like a raw transcript. Deduce B, like you do the work to figure out how to go from A to C. And then here's C. And then so next time I put in A, which in this case would be a transcript that Cody and I just had a conversation about, then I would say, okay, now create C using what you've learned from the past A to C process, if that makes sense, Cody. And so that's how I would have actually gone through it on ChatGPT to be able to use it. I won't waste the time right now to be able to do that, but I can give you the PRD, and if needed, I could even give you the transcript to show you like how that worked. I'll pause there.
No, I think that's great. Yeah, we'll include all that within the show notes that people can go and take a look at it, because I think that'll be valuable to them.
Yeah. And then here's just like a mock PRD. Again, you're saying the objective, here's the design and development of an AI-powered infographic generator tailored for marketing professionals, content creators, etc. A little bit of context. It's important to capture the audience's attention, conveying complex information succinctly, etc. Here's a user persona, Cody. I don't know if you're actually 30 or not, but maybe a little bit younger.
I am 30. my knee pain gives it away. My knee and lower back pain. I'm like, fuck, I'm gonna have to get one of those ergonomic chairs now.
Let's end it with the 27 here, just for the vibes.
The crow's feet say something different.
And kind of like laying out the background, etc. And this is all information that we just captured by chatting with them. Here's like some of the problems and jobs to be done. And it's literally like written out like this: as a marketer, I want to be able to quickly produce high quality infographics to meet campaign deadlines. Someone as a non-designer, I need it to be easy. Like, and you can kind of like walk through what the jobs to be done are. You can talk about like what their life is like. So for Cody, I forgot to put in like, it is somewhat of a degen living in Colorado. I could put that in as well. But and then you want to lay out your product principles. This could be like a whole other kind of topic of conversation. These product principles are also helpful because these ones are templated. They're not the best. They're not the best work of mine, but these are also super important because these will be the foundation of what kind of product is developed. And for these, the rule of thumb is a good product principle should be so opinionated that the inverse of that product principle could be a great strategy as well. So for example, maybe not this example, but maybe for like, we're building a voice AI bot, right, Cody? One of the product principles for that is voice for everything, like voice first. Yep. So versus
voice turns into the interface for everything.
For everything, right? Like, but an alternative could be text first, right? And that product principle could also work. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like the product principles.
It's kind of the biology of the product in a way, to say it in a different sense of like, oh, it needs to. This is the environment, or this is like how it survives, basically.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And there's multiple ways that you can survive, but this is how we're going to survive.
Totally. And you can be a carnivore or you can be a herbivore, but they right. They can still live and thrive in their own lane. So
yes. And this is important when you're building, because if you have disagreements as a team, maybe with your client or even just internally, likely it's a disagreement because one of the principles need to be changed. So let's say we launched the voice AI app and no one's using it. And you're like it's just like no one's engaging via voice. And you're like debating how to fix it, all these things. Likely one of the problems is actually just rolling back up to the principle. You're like, well, maybe actually we should include text as an option because people aren't going to speak whenever they're walking outside. You're like, okay, to do that though, let's change the product principle. Like we have to update that, and then it has knock-on effects for whatever other decisions that we make in the future. So this is helpful, just thinking about like product development and design. And then you kind of go into like proposed solutions as well. And so this is like, based on just like, ideating, like here's some things that we can start with. And then also a competitive analysis. And so of the infographic market, some of the stuff that I found, like you mentioned, is Canva. PictoChart is doing interesting stuff from an AI perspective, Adobe Spark. This is helpful because you want to, what is it? Good artist copy, or whatever that quote is. You don't need to reinvent the wheel a lot of the times. Look and see what's working, model after that, see what's not working for them. Don't do that. Right. And that is helpful to get a good start as well with your designs. So I'll pause there. Any questions based off of any of this?
No, I think it's brilliant. I love it. So, okay, you built this out, right?
Yep.
And now you would be like, okay, I'm going to go and do this, basically use V0. How do we do that? What does that look like?
Yeah. So before V0, what I would do is I would send this to my designer and our design team, who are great. Like the way that they're able to come up with designs is amazing. What would happen though is I would have to wait probably like a week before I can get something in front of the client again. And I'm doing so while not maybe validating exactly if those designs will align with the client's expectations, even if they've signed off on this document. And I'm also putting resources for my designer on it without having maybe like a full, like I don't have a contract signed yet, for example, in this case. So I'm investing resources without a clear ROI and knowing if that person will be able to actually sign the deal. And so when I found V0, I was like, oh, this is awesome, because now I can take this, put it into V0, get the initial mockups, go to the client immediately and say, hey, is this kind of what you're thinking? Get feedback based off of that, update it live. And then after that, then send it to my designer to be able to actually design it in our way, right? Like we take V0 and we make it like V10 relative to what we feel confident to build. But having that V0 piece is a really great start. to be able to get everybody on the same page. Again, visual, getting something to a visual component faster just makes people inspired to want to really move. Whether that's a client wanting to sign a contract, whether that's a user who wants to use a product, whatever that ends up being. So what I would do now is literally go to V0, copy paste the PRD, and say maybe make this into a mockup. I want a clickable prototype of this PRD, and then just see what happens. Sometimes I don't have to make a deeper prompt than that, and then just let it rip.
It's crazy.
To be honest, right?
So it's really a lot of heavy lifting on the front end. Have you heard of hold on, I gotta find the name of the company. Give me 1 second while this is running in the background. I'll look it up. But
it's good this being recorded because you can see how fast this operates.
No, it's crazy.
I just sit here and wait for a second. Go grab some coffee.
Have you heard of
coolguide.dev
yet?
No, show me after.
Okay. You can bring it up in the sidebar if you like, or in another tab while this is writing if you want.
Cool guy.
So I just met this founder, coolguide.dev. Let me, codeguide.dev. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, right there. Perfect. Okay, so basically what they do is like,
this is on V0, by the way.
It's amazing. I love that so much.
You can tell this is V0. You can tell this is V0 because I have the exact same dashboard that I've built out like
Unbelievable.
this.
Unbelievable. So like literally what it does is it like basically preps the information that you would need for whatever the programming IDE that you would be using after that's AI powered. So if you wanted to take this and put it into Cursor, it basically makes all the documents that are necessary for Bolt or for Claude or for Lovable or whatever the one is that you're using. Basically it reduces the amount of time that's necessary and also the amount of credits that are necessary to actually do the full build of the product later. So anyways, super related to this, thought it was fascinating.
Super smart.
So
you can see here again, like PRDs, right?
Yeah, totally.
It's just a document. Like, I wouldn't overcomplicate it. But it's helpful. It's helpful to start everything with. This is awesome. And I just know this is all built in.
Dude,
it's like I built the exact same dashboard.
Which is great. Yeah, he's such a gangster. Anyways, I'm gonna have him on the show at some point. But
amazing. So here's where you have to kind of dance with it, right? Like, now this is the first version of this thing. So I'm clicking around. I'm like, okay, like it's kind of cool. It's kind of confusing. I don't really know what's going on. So now I'll start kind of trying to work with it and dance with it. So, okay, this is helpful. I always try to be nice to these AI tools. If they take over one day, they'll be like, Jay was a pretty nice guy.
I love it.
Let's make several screens here. Let's start with. So, this could be part of the customer discovery. So we're back on the call. The customer is there. Hey, Cody. When you're interacting with a product like this, would you like if it started with a chat interface right off the bat, or would you think of maybe something else that could be helpful first?
Yeah, I think honestly, I would just like drop the URL in and then just be like, boom. It just, that I think is how do you get people to the aha moment of like, they're just going to paste the blog post URL in.
See what happens. And the V0 is improving pretty rapidly, but also sometimes you'll run into issues and bugs, and it doesn't come out perfectly. So you kind of just have to, keep working with it, just like with any like AI product.
Totally.
The part of the podcast that is super fun, just hanging out.
No, man, I love it. I think it's. This is how all this stuff is happening right now.
Yeah.
Like all the learnings happen in these settings. So So when you're thinking about so you're basically, what ends up coming out of this is it's not going to be functional. It's just going to be basically what it's going to look like. And Is that kind of how you convey that to the user, or are you trying to get it even further along with like some type of functionality that you're showing
Mm,
to your client?
yeah. So Uh, I will just start with the clickable prototype. And so they should be able to kind of look at this and like see how it'll look and feel. And then from there, I'll pass it over to my designer. They'll come back, they'll build out the actual designs, at least today in Figma. That is what's called like higher fidelity. And
Hmm.
then from there, then I'll actually have my engineering team be able to start building this out.
Nice.
Sometimes they also use no code builders. For us, at least, like because of the quality of our development process, we like to use it internally for like quick proof of concepts. But then when it comes to actually building production ready applications, at least today in January 10th, 2025, a lot of the products that are being built with Lovable with Cursor are kind of sticking at that initial level of like a really awesome like POC. But again, that could change like really quickly. So,
Yeah, yeah,
well,
yeah.
and I'm ready for that change. I'm excited for that change.
It's fascinating you say that about Cursor, because I know, I mean, I just like all of our engineers, I mean, they don't even touch anything else anymore, right? Like they
Yeah,
live out of Cursor. And like, I mean, we're, building hard applications or, very technical things with that. And like, if you took that away from an engineer that's like, cracked now, I feel like they would be like,
yeah,
I don't want to program anymore
yeah, exactly.
once they've like on it. So it's interesting to kind of hear that. I mean, I imagine your team is using, some type of AI powered IDE for all of their builds.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And we're experimenting with a couple other ones that are up and coming, which I'll tell you about after. So
Totally.
here's a couple other like little hacks that I like to use. So this is gonna look like a little promo, but so I really like one of the designs that original story that I was talking about the Chrome extension design.
Hmm.
This is like a design that I like to actually use for other products. And so what I'll do,
Yep.
and you can do this with any products, right? You can just like actually just pop it up here so you can see it. I actually like to screenshot the right UI.
And be like, make it like this.
Yeah. And so now I'll just like
Fascinating.
drag and drop it.
Oh, I love it.
Make the visuals, um, but not the copy, just the branding and the UI look like the attached screenshot. Otherwise, keep making this higher fidelity as needed. I don't need that. That's like this is the process. Now you're like, okay, like you start with you start with the chat experience, you put in the actual like URL, and then like it'll come up with the generator, right? So like now we're just like kind of like massaging it and playing with it. So now like based off this, like what else would you want in a product like this, Cody?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably like I think that's the core functionality is like so I drop in that URL, it generates that infographic. I imagine there's like a log of all of the ones that you've done previously.
Yep.
So it's like some type of history that exists. So maybe that's like a sidebar that occurs. Like you have a home. The home is basically just like a big blank drop in a URL or upload
Yeah.
a CSV of URLs. And then on the side, it's like you can click history, etc. And then it shows you all of the ones that have been generated previously, all the images or graphics that have been generated previously. I probably imagine that page with the history, it's like two formats. It's just like a list, but then also maybe visuals as well. So like, you have it where it's like a grid of the actual infographics that are generated, so it's easy to see, or just a list of them, based on date, etc.
Mm. So like this is like some of the bugs that you run into, right? So
Yep.
you have hallucinated and brought in too much of the copy of the screenshot. Loop back to the original UX UI, but just improve the branding with this color scheme. This is helpful, right? Like this is kind of like what happens.
No, totally.
Also in here, I'll say have a history section, like on the left side of ChatGPT. Maybe it'll go a little crazy. So I'll let this think. But then what I would do is literally just go to ChatGPT. Session has expired. What? Oh God. Sorry, guys. You guys can see my emails if you need it. Um, But what I would do is I would just go back to ChatGPT and then I would just take a screenshot of the history feature there, and then I would just put that into V0 as well to say, hey, like, do you mind just modeling it after this?
Totally.
Make
I'm
actually
curious
it's
your
kind
thoughts, Jay.
yeah,
Like, would you
yeah.
want it to chat? Like, I almost just want it to like just give me the final image output. So like rather than like tell it how the changes to make,
Hmm.
um, it's like almost just like this is, here's the flat design
Yeah.
infographic that was generated based on this. I'm
Yep.
just curious your thoughts there from a design standpoint.
Um, yeah, because you're saying, oh, interesting. Okay, something's changing. So you're saying like I don't want to have a conversation with it. I just want to be able to put the URL in and then be able to have a generated image.
Basically, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
I think in the future maybe there's a section where it's like you predefine, the type of infographic that you are generating. So it's like, I'm just imagining you take a screenshot of your homepage and you're like, build a
Yeah.
brand style guide based off this, and then that is how the infographic, like the color scheme and the text that's used, and et cetera, across the board. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, it's like maybe there's an onboarding section where you want to allow the user to upload um, brand guidelines, images that they've used in the past, to be able to dictate what the future infographics should look like. Um, uh, let's see. Also make the history section look like the attached. So, and this is like whenever I tell my designers, I'm like, you guys should all use V0. They'll start like commenting of like, yeah, but sometimes it doesn't get you there because like what we're looking at now is like, I wouldn't have said this to a customer yet, right? Like it's
Totally.
it's it's looking a little bit janky, and so then and a lot of the times, Cody, like I could put the exact same PRD into V0 with this exact same prompt, and it would just deliver something different
Can
each
we do
time.
that real quick just to see what that looks
Yeah,
like? Because I'm
yeah, yeah,
curious to see like the contrast of like where it ends up, and like
yeah,
maybe that's a
totally.
strategy too, where it's like, hey, do 3 different versions of the same PRD and see
Yeah,
which one you like
yeah, yeah,
most
yeah, yeah.
effectively, or which one is closest
Totally,
to your original
totally.
thought or idea.
Yes. Well, ironically,
And then are
that's
you
kind of how I
providing
like to.
wireframes, Jay, at that point, or like you're just doing the PRD version, like just the written version?
With like
I
this
guess like
original
what are best
discovery phase.
practices is kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Best practices after this step is done is to be able to like they say, yeah, like that looks good, and then we'll actually show them wireframes. We'll start to show them like actual like designs, etc. If valuable, I could even open up Figma and I can show you guys what that looks like if you think that's valuable.
yeah. I'd be curious to see. Yeah, 100%. I think so. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely. Let's
cool.
do it.
So like it's kind of interesting. It's kind of getting there. Some
Yeah.
weird kind of okay drag and drop. All right, cool. Like create infographic like from URL, upload file, example URL. Here's some broad guidelines.
Nice.
Here's this. Like here's the history. Okay, see, like you can kind of like start to see it come together a little bit. Um,
Totally.
so you have the history now here. You have the URL here. Um, and so you were saying, so okay, now show a screen with the infographic generated. Or actually, let me just try what happens here. Blah blah blah. Da, da, da. I wonder if it actually needs like a HTTPS www blah 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 blah. Okay, make this more clickable. Yeah, maybe let's just try again here. Um, just literally put this in, see what happens. And what I can do is I can open up our Figma as well in a second. Cruising, all this code coming together.
So, and then does your team then use that as a launch point, Jay? So they take that code and basically it's like, okay, cool. Like we're going to, you know, we have the components that we're going to incorporate into this. It's also fascinating too, like what this means if these tools become the standard. That's like a way to push a library like Next.js or like whatever their front end librris is. Which is kind of funny.
Exactly.
Just interesting.
So I think this. Let me show you a good example here of me taking this. Like, okay, this is kind of interesting. See, like literally, it just completely changed the whole the whole thing. Like, this is interesting. Now, like, enter generate. Let's see. I want to create marketing material. I think what I'll do is I'll actually just show you. I'll show you a V0 and then what ended up happening in terms of Figma to show you the differences.
Absolutely. Yeah. Super curious to see that. So
visual. Okay. Let me stop sharing my screen for a second.
Cool.
Okay.
And so we'll just now look at basically like this is what the actual Figma ends up being based off of the idea. So it's almost like PRD, V0 does ideations. We take the best ideas or concepts from that, take that into the design, and then from that design, we then go to our developers and engineers and actually have them build out all of the functionality and the components.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
So it is interesting, like seeing different teams' perspectives on how to use these AI tools. Like, how have you got like was your engineering team like really excited to be able to kind of like jump in and start interacting with these AI tools?
Yeah, I mean, we're just this is the standard now. Is kind of our view. Like if you're not doing this, we don't really work with you. We're like, how do you like? We're advocating for it, you know, very, very aggressively. That this is how everything is built. Basically, is lean on top of this because the velocity that you can move at with all of this is now just so much faster.
Exactly.
I just saw that Gumloop just raised like 17 million Series A with like 3 people, right?
Oh my God. There's a couple of these stories that are coming out, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I think that's the new standard, right? And how are they doing that? Because they're leaning on tools like this.
Yep. So this is an example of another like V0 and then what happened afterwards. So I'm actually building this whole thing in public with Cody. So this was like a month ago and I was like, I want to build a voice journal application. So let me create a PRD for that. So voice journal AI. So this is the original PRD, right? I then took this, I'm happy to share this as well. And then took this to V0, ended up creating these designs. So I kind of had like, you know, voice, text, photo, like you can kind of see different insights. Maybe you can listen to yourself as a podcast, right? Like I was able to kind of like prompt it to get to like a pretty good spot here. And then I sent this to my designer. I was like, okay, do your magic, my man. And then he came back with this.
Totally.
So it just goes to show that like at the end of the day, if you really want to be able to stand out in terms of design, V0 is not there yet. V0 helps you get started. And then you just have great designers to be able to actually take that to the next level, right?
Totally.
Because there's different frameworks, there's different libraries, there's all these different things that you can use when you're just in Figma. And so all the functionality is the same, but you can tell that it's just like the next level of it, right? The insights, the overview, for the audience, this is the ability to listen to your own journal entries as a podcast. And we're going to be, some gaming tools, subscribing, etc. So all the UX was actually quite similar. But what ended up coming out and what we'll end up shipping was very different, right? Because it's almost similar to like, you just post a blog post just straight ChatGPT created. No one really likes that too much. So if you just ship designs that are just V0 created, it'll that's fine. It'll probably work enough, but it doesn't add that flair. It doesn't add that authenticity when everybody can just create, like it's not going to make you stand out. So again, V0 is V0. It's like the first version of it. It's the first version of the thing, but then from there you have to expand on it.
I think with that though, it's like, okay, there are tools out there, I know these exist, where it's like I can take that V0 version, I screenshot that and then go and basically be like, cool, make this like designed in this aesthetic. I come back to V0 and I'm like, okay, now improve it so it looks and feels like this.
Totally.
Or use this framework. Like I've done this in the past where it's like, hey, use a Tailwind CSS framework, but design it in this aesthetic, in this style, basically. And then like outputs can be a lot of the time, again, how I think about this too is like, I'm going to literally take a screenshot of the thing that we just built. And then we're going to go and I'm going to put that on the website, like as the screenshot of the product. And then I'm going to drive traffic to it. We're going to get people to sign up to it, to validate it. We haven't even built the product yet. We're just using this as a way to basically validate the idea. And that is like the reason that this fits into it. So,
Right. Yeah. And like, once these designs are done, you can actually go back to V0 again. And then be able to like edit it and like work with that. And so yeah, I mean, I guess the TLDR is like the world of design is definitely changing pretty rapidly. You should definitely be using these tools to be able to spin up the first versions of your product. I think over time the capabilities of these models will only increase, the capabilities of these products will only increase, and likely at some point, like a non-technical, non-design person like myself or like yourself should just be able to use some of these tools to spin up everything. And we're actively thinking about, depending on like client needs, like what do they need? Do they need the really like beautiful like prototype? Do they need, something that's a little bit that's like faster, like, and it's fascinating because these tools are like coming out every other day. So we have to change our own service offerings and our packaging. But it's, what a time to be alive.
No, it's crazy, man. I think it's changing everything. So anyway, brother, I appreciate your time as always. If people want to find you, where's the best place to reach out?
Sorry guys, it's actually going to be LinkedIn. That's kind of the spot for me. I'll put it in hopefully you can put it in the show notes or something.
Yeah. Happy to add it in the show notes, man. Would love it. Thank you again, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
See you, man.
Later.